Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Lessons from Leaders. And I could not be happier to have Laurie Adams with us. She is the CEO of Women for Women, that works with women who are in conflict zones or who have experienced conflict. Is that expressing it correctly, Laurie?
Yes, absolutely. Women for Women works with women who are in the toughest places to be a woman, and that tends to be conflict zones where there's deep gender discrimination.
And having myself, when I did work for an NGO, I did a lot of work in West Africa and in Southern Africa and a lot of conflict areas. Besides, I don't know if I told you, I was also in El Salvador during
Oh,
the
wow.
war. So that's a cause that's dear to my heart.
Yeah.
And I've had the opportunity to talk to Laurie a little bit about her background, which is not your regular coming of age story. So Laurie, would you just begin by telling us how you got here? What is about your background that brings you to doing the work that you're doing now?
Well, I think, one of it's usual amongst international NGO leaders, but I did grow up all over the world. So I was born in Korea, raised in Germany and Italy, working off of US military bases. And so not only did I grow up in lots of different cultures, but I also had a front row seat on what is the role of America in the world. Both America as this vision and hope and dream, but also America as this force whose power sometimes impacted lives in ways that they got very, very resentful. But also, I grew up in a very mixed race family. I grew up with a African American Asian sister. I married into a family of multiple faiths, different religion, nationality, class, etc. And so one of the themes has been building bridges and understanding across really different realities. My growing up with my sister led me to a sort of a quest for justice, because really seeing how she was treated and so differently than me was just so maddeningly unfair. But that quest to overcome racism led me to South Africa, where poverty was what the biggest problem ended up being after apartheid was ended. And so that led me to a quest to end poverty. I then spent 15 to 20 years working with organizations like Oxfam and ActionAid that tried to address poverty and inequality structurally and through direct service. But that led me to women's rights, because everywhere I went, and I was the head of monitoring and evaluation at ActionAid for 9 years, every country I went to, what was making the biggest difference is women. If you just bring women together into a room even, that already starts to bring about a transformation. And if you start providing resources, skills, and training, then that creates just, it unblocks, potential of half of humanity that we have been holding back. So that quest for justice was born out of my upbringing, and that led me to racism, poverty, and around to women's rights. So it's all interlinked and connected, and we have to confront all of those injustices. But I do think that I decided to go into an organization dedicated to women's rights, because that's where I felt you automatically see the most difference.
And didn't you tell me that you also realized the importance of including men because of your own experience of watching someone close to you struggle with being a man, a feminist, and what that in a society that wasn't comfortable?
No, absolutely. And I think it's across all societies. We're seeing it here in the US as well. I married a man who was a self-expressed feminist back in the 80s. He was actually reading radical feminist theories such as Andrea Dworkin in order to try to figure out how to be the best man he could be. And he wanted to share a career. He wanted to raise the kids. But everywhere we lived, in the UK, in Senegal, in South Africa, he was seen as lesser. So his self-worth, how society saw him, I mean, he was literally ridiculed by members of his own family, by his own mother, by people out in society. And that chipped away at his ego. But ego brings up sometimes a bad, at his sense of self and his role in the world and his ability to play an important role in the world. So I learned through that you really have to address norms in the deepest way. And I also learned, most of the people that were holding him back to take up this new role are actually women. And so I think it's a mistake to think that sexism is perpetrated by men alone. The way we've set up our society is that some women have been able to gain certain forms of power in traditional feminine roles and restrictions, which they're very scared to give up. And whether that's a role in the home, whether that's the role in being the protector of social norms, whether it's being the person who actually does the cutting in FGM, and that's your livelihood. There are plenty of women as well as men who need assistance in finding new ways of valuing themselves under a different system of gender norms.
And just for those that don't know, FGM is female genital mutilation, right? So I'm curious, is for you, like what for you to grow into your leadership, like what internal beliefs, if any, did you have to confront or find out? And then the opposite is what are the external things, not the opposite, the other side that you
Yeah.
have come across?
I think the internal and exterior barriers that I had to overcome to become a leader are really linked, because it's linked back to what we were just talking about, what society expects of a woman. So my mom was a feminist. I grew up, reading Ms. Magazine and Free to Be You and Me. And yet it was my dad who really dominated his character, and his personality really dominated. And so it was a contradiction. And I grew up afraid of power, afraid of not being liked, seeking to please. And so if you're trying to be nice and liked and a good girl, then it's really hard to be an effective leader. You have to be able to take tough decisions. You have to be able to disagree respectfully. You have to be able to take risks. And so what society expected of me as a girl and a woman, which was not passed on to me directly by my parents. Both of them strongly believed in, through words, that a woman should be anything she wanted to be. But through the society and through what they modeled, I ended up being more collaborative and consensus and nice. And those are important parts of being a leader. Being collaborative and being nice are not bad things, but you have to have a drive for your vision in the world and for wanting to be respected more than being nice if you want to really be able to bring about change.
So how do you balance that? The drive for bringing about your vision and still being collaborative and not nice enough.
Well, I
There's
think
a
it's
balance there,
no.
right?
There's a total balance. And, in everything in leadership, there's a balancing act, and so you're constantly reassessing. But I think if you are, it's one of the most important characteristics of a leader to listen, and to be part of organizations and teams that are driven by a common mission. So setting out a vision that we all collaboratively build and believe in together. And at Women for Women, that was easy because I joined an organization that had the vision I wanted. And so everybody here is already committed. So that's fantastic. Right. So we have this common vision that I didn't even have to build to about what we want to achieve in the world. How to achieve it is the one where you really have to listen deeply and, bring into the team people who have really different perspectives and views. We have people who come from radically different styles and opinions. In our leadership team, we have, on the political spectrum, we have Republicans, we have socialists, we have Democrats, we have all types of different perspectives. And it's by listening to all of those voices and opinions and then making the best decision you can that you balance it. And 30 years of working, does bring you more humility, because I've been wrong plenty of times. And so you really learn that, yes, you have to follow your instincts, and you also have to hone your instincts by checking your assumptions with the people around you.
And part of the difficulty thank you for that, the difficulty with the sector that we're in, the non-governmental and the global development sector, is that people, I think their expectations are very high about that we'll follow the values that we've set out for our work. And so as I'm listening to you talk about, listening to all the voices and still, if I understood you, still making the decision, your decision, your call. How do you balance that with everybody feels heard and you're still going to lead?
I think by being honest about the fact that you're doing that. So first of all, you have to keep your North Star of the mission, and you have to say, we are all here to bring resources, skills, and knowledge to as many women who need them as possible. So our decision has to be driven by that. So, and explain. So for example, this is a tiny micro example, but when we downsized our office and got rid of all of our nice conference rooms and everybody had to squeeze into more open plan, to say, you know, this translates into 1,000 more women being able to go through our program every year. That helped make this unfavorable decision that nobody wanted palatable, because people were driven, oh, this is helping us put thousands more people through the program. I guess I can deal with less conference room space, even though that makes my work a bit harder. So explaining the rationale and why, and doing it with respect. So for example, if you have to face something really terrible, like letting go of somebody or skipping a skill set, have the respect and the dignity of explaining to that person or the people affected why, in a way that values the amazing contribution they've made, because they have done. And but if you what does someone call it, soft pedal the decision, you're not helping anybody. So be clear and honest, and make sure that your decisions are driven from the right place, and have enough checks and balance in your leadership, enough people who are willing to tell you. We've just rewritten a job description, and we've written in there, ability to tell the leader she's wrong is like what we need in this position, because we can't have people, I've seen it so much, people sucking up to leaders by telling them what they think the leader wants, even if the leader doesn't want that sucking up to happen. So it's really important to have to explain your decisions, to explain your thinking process, to stick with them, not soft pedal them, and to make sure that you've taken the best decision you could possibly take at that time, and that it's in line with the vision and mission, not making something easier for yourself or solving a problem, but rather in the true interests of the whole organization.
Do you have any things that you do to keep yourself knowing that you're not in the bubble? Is there any processes that you use, or any tips that you would give? Because it does happen. You get in the bubble, even if you hire people that can tell you that they don't agree with you. Somehow that bubble thing still happens.
Well, one of the things I had done is marry a fantastic woman who tells me what she really thinks. So
partners are good for that. Yes.
Yeah, partners are very good for that, and she knows a lot about the kind of work that I do. So it's a really healthy ground. I go back and I say this, and this, and she says, "Oh yeah, no, got that, no." Or, you know, you have to be brave there. Or so finding sounding boards, and it doesn't have to be your partner. It can be a friend. It can be, you know, it can be a professional coach. Finding sounding boards where people don't have a vested interest in you agreeing with them, or the other way around, and passing by some of your thought processes and decisions with them is helpful. Because I do know, and it's you know, it's a question we talked about before about what have you learned from your mentors and your sponsors. I worked for the most fabulous leader, a guy called Ramesh Singh at ActionAid, a Nepali for whom humility was his core value. And there is no chance ever that I could model any stronger than Ramesh did his desire to get real information and real feedback. And even for Ramesh, who talked about it constantly, I saw people going and telling him the prettier picture than what it really was. So I know that if they're doing it to Ramesh, they're doing it to me, for sure. So it's also knowing that. It's also knowing, okay, I'm so not being told the full picture here. And that's true in the work on the ground as well, being head of monitoring and evaluation. And, you know, I remember years ago, I think it was, actually this was before I was head of M&E. This is when I was just doing some monitoring and evaluation for Oxfam back in 2000 in a rural village in Ghana. And I knew for sure, because I was going to do an investigation, that this project hadn't had the intended impact. Every single person in the village I talked to said, this is a great program. These are great people. And they were telling me that because they were afraid that if this investigation led to a critical view of the project, no more money would come. And so even though the project was terrible, a little bit of terrible was better than nothing at all. And so, you learn over time that, what you're being told, you need to triangulate. And that's not that you're not trusting people. It's just a better way to make decisions is checking what you're hearing and your own assumptions with multiple different people with different perspectives and interests.
I think that's really important because it's it's you're working to get your people around you to always be honest with you. Maybe honest isn't the right word, but frank, give you feedback that you need. It's it's difficult. It's natural that it's difficult. It's nothing against the people around you. They're trying to, they want to get along. They don't want to wreck the relationship. All the reasons that we don't give people feedback. And so it's knowing.
You also listen to learn to body language.
That's a
I
good
have one
point.
person on my team, and when their eyebrows do a certain thing, I'm like, oh yeah, nope. I don't care what she's actually saying. I can tell from her eyebrows. You get to listen deeper, and
So you
ask
have
more
to have
questions.
like an antenna out. Listening
Yeah,
to you, I'm thinking you need to always have one of your antennas is always tuned to what else might be going on here.
that's right.
And not and no judgment of anybody that's that's maybe they're not unable to always say what's on their mind.
And also
Um,
in collective processes, one of the things that we've put in place here at Women for Women is to always ask, what else, what more, who else? Like
mm,
when we're about to take a decision, just step back and go, wait a minute, are we forgetting anybody who needs to input or know about this? Is there any other repercussion or impact that we're not seeing? And if you do that pause, we call it the culture of pause. If you do that culture of pause, and you step back a little bit, then and you're specifically asking, what have we forgotten? What are we not seeing? Then that also can open up space.
can you say it again? So it's the culture of pause, and what are the things you ask yourselves? What else?
What else do we need to consider?
Okay,
What other impact might this have?
okay.
Who else do we need to consult or consider? Like who else might be impacted, or who
Mm-hmm.
else might we need to bring into this conversation? Um,
That's
so
excellent.
yeah,
And that's a good practice for an individual leader just to check themselves.
yeah,
Am I out talking to everybody I need to be talking to? Am I
that's right.
listening?
Yeah.
That's good. Um, Also, I think we talked last time, one of my favorite topics is failure because I think failure is the thing that we are naturally wired to avoid. And where we have some of our greatest learnings. And if we don't fail, then we don't grow, either individually or as organizations, right? We just stay in the safe. So you wrote me and said, failure is a powerful driver of success. Embrace failure, fail forward are two phrases I've learned and used. Can you tell us more about your thoughts on failure? And if you can share with us any of a failure that you had that was a wonderful learning to help reinforce that we love failure.
Yeah, so the embracing failure comes from Robert Chambers, who helped spread and pioneer participatory rapid appraisal. So that was, way back in the early 90s in terms of how you work with communities. And of course, it's now all over the literature in terms of failing forward and sort of innovation and tech world. So it comes from different places. I guess one of the deepest and hardest failures that I learned from was trying to really transform an organization that I inherited, that really needed to quite radically change its position in the world. And I went in with the best intentions and working really hard and tried everything in my power to do this. And I didn't succeed. And I learned through that process the absolute deep, important, the power of what you might call deep culture.
Mm,
So what is going on in people and in an organization so deep under the surface that it's going to take you months and years to understand and navigate. There was, in that particular organization, there had been a slew of layoffs over the past years. And what was fascinating was that the team that was there at the time, none of them had been through that, and yet they embodied the fear. The fear of that was in them. And were actually no redundancies on the horizon in terms of what I was trying to do. But because they had heard that that had happened to previous teams, they were just frozen by that fear. And this was in a labor environment in which there's 50% unemployment. So, the fear of losing your job is not a place where you just go out and get another one. It's tough, right? But it was just, okay, whatever is being said and on the surface, and wherever people are going, yes, we embrace that vision, yes, we're going to do that. If they're frozen in fear, and if you can't understand and you can't diagnose the deep, deep culture, you can't shift things. I don't know if I could have done something differently that it would have changed it. I do sometimes think that there are things that can't be turned around. You get to a certain place and it's too late, sort of like having cancer stage 4. It's like there's not much that can be done at this stage. I'm very sad because I had a powerful vision for, not just but we had built a powerful vision of how this organization could stay relevant. So from that I learned that the stated vision and commitment is not enough, that you have to have a really deep diagnosis of where people are coming from. One of the most useful exercises I did during that process, which I had done earlier, I was really mystified. I love change. I was really mystified why people weren't more excited about this new vision. And we did a Myers-Briggs exercise that showed that of the 40 or so staff that were in this particular team, one of us was in the embrace change, that was me. 2 or 3 of us were in the, if there's a good enough business case, I'll embrace change. And everybody else was in the personality camp of, I will only change if it's like totally and obviously clear and, I will be dragged to change. It's like, okay, if you're starting with this like psychic makeup, you got to do it differently than if you're starting, you can't just go, rah, rah, the change is going to be great. Look at this vision. You have to start with a really, really different place. So know your people, know the culture, and meet them where they're at, not where you're at, not what drives you, not what inspires you. You got to meet your people where they're at individually and collectively in a culture.
So that circles back to a bit where we started about, listening to everyone, hearing all the voices. Again, it's what you're talking about is so much openness, and quite an investment in listening and talking to other people and being present. Does it feel like that?
It does, and one of the things yes, so being able to understand where people are at and go with them from where they're at requires deep listening. There are, however, and this is what I'm learning in my current job, limits to process. And it's really important to also close off a conversation after a certain period of time and say, this is what we are doing, and no, we're not reopening that, or, etc. And so and that's really important for people to have a feeling of accomplishment, that what they've done in the day has led to a real tangible difference. So if you spend all your time, so one person here said to me, I have never been in an organization in which I was consulted on the strategy 4 times. Like, it's normal to be consulted on strategy once, but this is the 4th meeting I've been consulted. I don't want to be consulted anymore. Right. And so there's like a limit, and you need to, people in NGOs in all world want meaningful work that leads to tangible difference, where value is added to the world, and process and alone doesn't do that.
And to me, that's again where I find, particular to the culture of NGOs, how much do we consult? How much do we not consult? When do we just make the decision? And I was working with 2 teams that are merging, and the team members were asking the leadership to just decide, just tell us what it's going to look like.
Yes.
And the leadership, no, we need to hear from you. And we knew that if the leadership just decided, there would probably be some people saying, why didn't you talk to us? You things are taking, just being comfortable with that tension of maneuvering between those two and never, at least in my opinion, you're never going to feel like I got this, I nailed this
No,
right.
because I mean, that's the big growing up as a leader. You're never going to make everybody happy. There's at
Yeah.
least, there's so many different ways to analyze. People are different in the world. I once published this book at Action Aid with others that said, guide to how to do community work, basically, and then you opened it up and the notebook was empty. And the idea was that
I
the
like that.
facilitator had to figure it out because every community is different and every relationship is different. But the vast majority of people hated that. They're like, please just tell me what to do. I don't want to have to relearn how to do everything. I don't want to reinvent the wheel. Just please give me an interview guide so I can go out in the community and interview them. Please don't make me do all that hard work. So personalities are different. And I guess what you try to do, and this is a management lesson as well, some people want more to be told what to do. Other people want more to control their own work. Everybody, I think, wants some sense of productivity and meaning and value, but they derive that from different things. And some people really do. I've had so many people say to me, Laurie, would you just tell me really clearly what you want? And they don't mean that from a, just tell me what you want. They mean it from a, I really want to feel like it's a success. And for me, success is understanding how best I can help you with that thing you're doing. So that's an important part of balancing. And maybe this, I hadn't thought about this before, but this conversation is sparking. Maybe you create different opt-in for the extra, for those who really want that.
I like that. That's a good thought. What are some of the things that give you joy in your job, or and the things that you're proud of, right, in your current situation? I love the smile that you just got this feeling.
Well, it sounds like an organizational advertisement, but it comes so genuinely. I'm so thrilled to be working in an organization where every single day I absolutely know for sure that what we've done has led to like really important, tangible, transformative changes for women. And in this time right now, my main homes now are the UK and the US. We've got hard Brexit coming up. We've got elections coming up, neither of which inspire me. And so, and there's, greatest migration in the world and climate change and, lots and lots of stuff that feel beyond your control. And I can come to work every day and feel like I have some, what I was talking about, some meaning and autonomy and impact in the world that's positive. So that's super exciting. I used to work more for advocacy organizations where the difference you make is really important, but it's really long-term and tangible. I remember when I had to do the advocacy strategy for Congo, like, yeah, that you're not going to see immediate, tangible, positive results by 5 o'clock, So the ability to be in an organization where that change is very direct and tangible, it feels like a real privilege right now. And the other thing that makes me really happy in this job, two things. One is Women for Women is funded 70% by tens of thousands of individuals who give funding. And I call it people's philanthropy. I've had a number of calls or people walk in the door where they say, look, I'm a postal worker or I'm retired and I can't give more than $35 a month, but thank you very much for allowing me to be a philanthropist. And I love that. I love it that someone who's giving $10 a month identifies as a philanthropist. And I love it that they also feel that feeling I have of like, hey, I can do this thing and it makes a difference. So that's also exciting. But right now I'm having that experience, which also makes me thrilled. We're in a strategy process and we started in November. And I, as the CEO, worked really hard to say, okay, here's the question to be answered. Here's the challenge to embrace, and then step back and just let the teams do it. And we've just had the report back from all the teams to each other about what they've done. And it's brilliant. It's so exciting. I just, absolutely love seeing what the teams came up with and how, and just learning again. Yeah, you find great people, and then you let them do their magic, and then collective magic happens, and it's fantastic. And you just, if you can set a North Star that people believe in. So I'm really, really excited about that, about what people in the team have come up with, and how it's all coming together.
And then you get to be excited about the vision they're coming up with, and you get to be excited about, oh my gosh, I have these incredible people
Yeah,
working here
yeah.
because they came up with this. So it's like a twofer,
No, it's a 3-4, and I don't have to do it myself.
and you don't have to do it yourself.
That's the most. I don't have to do it myself. Smarter people than me can do what they know how to do it. They can figure it out. I don't have to stay up in the middle of the night worrying about it.
And
So
that,
that's just such a sense of relief and empowerment for me, that it's true, but on the day, and this has happened in the last couple of weeks, on the day that you see the concrete evidence, you're like, yay, it works. What I believe actually works.
and then you'll go on to the next level, whatever that will be for you.
That's it.
So Laurie, I'd like to pause here and let this be part one.
Okay.
And then Laurie and I will be having a part two conversation with our good friend Tom Dente, who used to be the CEO of Humantum, who Laurie knows. Well, I don't know if you knew each other, but you went to school together.
That's right.
And Laurie was an activist about apartheid in South Africa. And Tom was there at the same time watching her do her thing. So we wanted to have our part two be with the three of us to see what kind of conversation that will be. So thank you very much for this time, for your stories, and I will look forward to talking to you for our part two.
Lynn, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. I think your work to help us really reflect on our leadership and share that is profound for all of us who get to listen, but also, that process of reflecting back and figuring out how to articulate it is really helpful. And I really look forward to speaking to you and Tom at the same time. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.